Well, hello everyone, welcome back to another Touching Grass segment. And today I'm going to tell you about the story of how I almost got scammed and how it can happen to you too. So this actually only happened like a couple of days ago. By the way, I feel like I should have mentioned this earlier before starting with the story. I know it's kind of annoying that the camera is like moving so much because I'm holding it with my hands. Do let me know if you want me to record somewhere else, I don't know. But yeah, back to the story. So this happened I think on Wednesday or Thursday, and it was like basically two dudes that knocked on my door. First mistake was not actually checking who was in there or just like straight up opening the door, and it was like two dudes who I've never seen before, who told me they were from my electricity provider, and they had to like check some stuff, double check some stuff, and collect a signature. In hindsight, it was really stupid, and I can't believe I fell for it. But I gave them like a bunch of info because I wouldn't say I was like naive, but the thing is, like when I deal with people who are at work, it's my goal to basically make it so that I give them as little work as possible, and I just make the entire conversation as smooth as possible. That's always like really important to me, that I'm like open and cooperative and everything. And I didn't like second guess myself, or I didn't second guess them if they were actually like legit or not. Because to be honest, like I almost never opened the door for strangers. I don't know what came over me that day. I just decided to open it up. But yeah, basically they thankfully they didn't like collect any like important data, like my bank account info or my email address or my phone number. They honestly know nothing of value, which is also why I didn't really get the feeling that I was scammed. Like at first I was like, okay, well, that's just what it was, I guess. But then apparently these two dudes, they checked all the other apartments in the building, and nobody was home except for one of my neighbors, who said she doesn't have like any time for this right now, and she's gonna be on vacation soon and blah. So she just kind of like shoot them away and told them like if the electricity provider wants anything to do with her, they should just like call her or whatever, and then just slammed the door shut. And apparently they were like really like pissed off, almost like they were really, really pushy, and that like kind of like set off alarm bells for her, whereas I was like completely clueless. I just, didn't know those were not legit people. And then basically my neighbor came down to my apartment. Okay, it's not a wasp. For a second I thought it was a wasp here. Thankfully not. She came to knock at my door as well, and she opened up and was like, "Did these two dudes also just like ask you for a bunch of info?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Yeah, I think they weren't who they said they were." And I'm like, "Wait, why?" And we basically like exchanged a bunch of info, and it was pretty obvious that they were scammers. So here's where this got weird for me, right? Because if they are scammers, why didn't they just scam me on the spot? Like clearly I was being like cooperative and kind of naive, honestly. Why didn't they just scam me on the spot? Why didn't they just like ask for my phone number or whatever? Didn't make sense to me. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. But I thought about it for a while, and I remember that they mentioned that they want to send like a letter to me. Like they wanted to send a letter in my mailbox the next couple of days, where this entire exchange was about like I should probably preface this. This entire exchange was about like some cheaper I don't know, some cheaper contract that I can slide into if I want to, and the usual stuff like, oh, you could save some money if you just have to like enter your bank account and stuff and blah, and that's why it clicked for me. So the reason why they didn't scam me on the spot was because they just wanted to collect data so they can forge the fake letter, right, that is supposedly from my actual real electricity provider, when it's actually not, right? Because the thing is, they have to like put a bunch of stuff in their letter, like my customer number, which is one thing they asked for, my full name, etc. Because if they don't, obviously I'm gonna be like, what the fuck is this, right? So to make the letters seem legit, they needed all that info. That's what this was for. I'm currently still waiting for the letter. I'm not sure if it's ever gonna come. I hope not. To be honest, I'm just glad that nothing worse happened, because at some point we were also in the basement for like because I had to like check the current electricity count. I'm not actually not sure what it's called in English, unfortunately. But I was like alone with these two dudes, and they were like young, fairly sporty, I would say relatively fit people. To be honest, if they wanted to, they could have just like knocked me over or threatened me with a knife and tell me to give them the apartment keys so they can rob the place. This could have gone wrong in like a million different ways. So I'm really, really glad that it didn't go wrong. I feel like I really got off relatively well. And I know that if any letter comes into my mailbox, I know I can just throw it away. Nonetheless, though, I was like, I felt really bad about this. Not necessarily because of what happened, but because I fell for it. Because the thing is, like, you watch so many videos on scams, and you hear so much about them. You hear about it on the radio, like so many warnings. So I just couldn't believe that I fell for it myself, right? It's just like, you think you're smarter than this, and you look at all these people falling for this, and you'd be like, oh, I'm not naive. I'm not an idiot. I would never fall for this. But the reality is scams, and this is why it can happen to you as well. Scams don't, or like the victim of scams aren't just naive people or stupid people that didn't know any better, but it's also just people that mean well. You know, as I said that, oh God, now there's a wasp. Okay, it disappeared. But it's also people that, you know, just don't want to cause any trouble, you know, that just want to be cooperative with people around them, that just try to be nice, you know. Like if everyone in the world was an asshole, there would be no scammers. Everyone would try to be scamming, but all the potential victims would be like, fuck off, you know. And that's why you got to be careful. Now, unfortunately, you know, as I said, this like really got me down that day. Like I was feeling really bad about this because it was just like, I can't believe that just happened. Like low-key ruined my day. Even if nothing bad happened, thankfully. But like over time, I learned that this was just kind of, you know, a lesson for me personally. How can I hold the camera without my finger? I'll just do this. Over time, I just learned that this was, you know, just a lesson for me personally, and that I need to be more careful, and that you guys also need to be more careful. Like you never know when it hits you. You know, you're never gonna know when it actually hits you, and when you're actually in a situation where you have to be careful. And the tricky thing here is I don't want this interaction that I had with these scammers affect how I interact with strangers moving forwards, because I still want to be a nice, open, cooperative, supportive person towards strangers. Like if an old lady, you know, asks me to or needs like help with something, I want to be there to help that person instead of being like, oh no, you know. And that's like the tricky part. Like when is it okay to be like a good stranger to someone, you know, and be cooperative and supportive, and when is it better to just kind of like be a bit more careful? And I think it ultimately comes down to when people are at your door, shoo them away. If you don't expect anyone to visit you, if you don't expect a package, if you don't expect visitors, nobody has business with you, okay? And they can fuck right off. So it doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't matter how important they make it sound. If it's something important, right? If it's like, for example, like your electricity provider, they will tell you about it before they arrive, okay? So if someone has any business with you, they will contact you beforehand, right? Like they will send you a letter beforehand, or they will call you beforehand, or an email, and they'll be like, hey, we got to visit you that day because we have some business with you. If none of that happens, and you don't expect anyone, you don't expect the package, do not open the door for anybody. Nobody has business with you, right? Like this is like your place. This is like your safe haven, if you will. And that was ultimately my takeaway. So I think, you know, when it comes to, obviously people can still scam you outside of your own four walls, right? Like outside. So you have to always be kind of wary. And ultimately, like, I think the, what you have to look at, what you kind of have to like ask yourself is like, what is the intent of the person that is speaking to me right now? If they're trying to, if it's like some business stuff, or if they want you to pay money, just don't do it. Like stop the interaction. And honestly, like you can be kind of rude about it as well. Like you just like walk away, right? Like actually walk away, or just close the door. Like you don't even need to give them like an explanation or whatever. Just walk away, right? But if you get the feeling that the intent of the person you're speaking to, it's just like that they need help with something, or if, you know, they're just asking you very simple questions, then it's fine. Then you can just be normal, I guess. But yeah, that's the story of how I almost got scammed. And once again, it can happen to you too. It can happen to anyone. Be careful out there. Scammers are getting, or in general, I feel like something happened to the world over the last couple of years, and especially the economy, that I think nowadays people are more and more desperate and more, I don't want to say unfriendly, but they just don't, I feel like people just don't give a fuck anymore, right? Like, so that's why scammers are just, you know, at an all-time high at the moment. So, yeah, moral of the story, be careful out there. All right, that's it for me. I'll be going home, and hopefully I will not get scammed again as I go home. So yeah, thanks you so much for listening, and I'll hopefully see you again in the next one. Bye bye.